Hello, my friends. Today I just have something very short, and it's a topic that I don't truly believe the church understands. And they don't understand it because they don't yet know how to rightly divide things. And the part of the piece of the gospel that I have up is from Matthew 5:27 to 32. And this is basically speaking about sin and sexual immorality and adultery, and how a human being is subjected to these sins. Yet, the human at the same time, as he is born again, these sins are cut off from them. The sin is removed from them, and it doesn't happen automatically, it doesn't happen instantaneously. But as you walk with the Spirit, you will indulge less in the flesh. So as you cast off the flesh from you, as you cut off the flesh from you, the Spirit becomes your driving force instead of the lust of the things of the flesh. And the church looks at this as black and white. They say, well, if one is in adultery, then they are a sinner. If one is caught even observing with lust somebody else, you're sinning. The church believes that a human being sins no matter what. And all of this is true. All the flesh does is sin. It desires nothing but to lust after the things of vanity. But whenever the Spirit changes you and it begins to change that which once filled your heart, because Jesus, remember, God takes your heart, which is full of the things of evil and wickedness. He breaks it, removes it, destroys that. And then as you walk with the Spirit, just like a garden, just like water, just like fertilizer is put into a seed to help it grow, picture your heart as that seed growing into a plant. And eventually that plant produces the fruit which has been put in it to grow it. So it's not a black and white thing. You're not going to just immediately no longer have vanity and cares of the flesh. It is a process where those things are cast away from you based off of what your mind is indulging itself into. If one constantly is putting themselves in a position of vanity, going out to bars, going out to nightclubs, watching pornography, watching sexual movies, lusting after a coworker, making jokes and winks and flirtiness, all of these things is the flesh. It's all vanity. And as you walk with God, you will see the Spirit transform those things you once allowed to rule your life into less and less and less and less and less of that. God has a specific way which He judges man. God says, according to your generation is how you will be judged. So whenever we're talking about sin, and we're talking about lusts, and we're talking about these kind of things of unrighteousness, I'll put together two men side by side, and I'll put one man on the right and one man on the left, both from the same generation, which our generation right now is the worst, most wicked generation of all of mankind. Not according to me, according to God. So if you put two men, one on the right, one on the left, I'll take the one on the left who has not been born again, who constantly lusts after those sins, such as pornography, and he constantly lusts after his coworkers, and he's married, but he constantly wants to commit sexual immorality, not only with himself, but with another. That one on the left, that is just human beings. That's just mankind. That's the natural instinct that the flesh has. That's what it wants to do. And since he has no relationship with God, those fleshly lusts only increase over time instead of decrease. As he's filling up his heart, that same plant, he took a seed and he growed it throughout his whole life, and that plant begins to produce fruit, and it blooms, and it produces the fruit of whatever he has done in his life. If he knows nothing else other than flesh, it will continue to produce nothing else other than flesh. That's this generation's man. That's this generation's individual. That's what this generation does. You can just turn on your television set and see it. It's producing the fruits of wickedness, of the things of vanity. But now let's take a man on the right. And let's say that this man on the right also filled his heart up with all of the same things as the one on the left did. But then he was born again. Everything that that one on the left did is then cut off, it's cast away, and it's removed from him. Now that right man still lives in the world, so the world is still the garden. It's still where the plant will be raised. So you cannot get rid of that vanity and that lust. But what you can do is plant a new seed in it so that the new seed is better than the other seed. It's not perfect. It's not going to take away everything. But that seed is like seed 2.0, according to this generation and how it speaks. That seed is a better seed than the one on the left. And as that seed is watered with the things of the Spirit, it's fertilized with the things of righteousness, the heart eventually grows and produces a fruit which is good as opposed to the one on the left, which is wicked. So I have both of these men. They're both sinners. One was born again into the sinless nature, the holy nature of God. One was not. The one on the left will never know anything of righteousness. The one on the right does know things of righteousness. But then the one on the right still, even after knowing righteousness, because of where that seed is planted, it's planted in the garden that the devil came and stole from God. That man on the right can't get away from that. That is his heritage. That was his past. He can't completely remove it. It's a new piece of a canvas. It's like flipping a page, but you're still on the same canvas. He's never going to completely get rid of everything until Christ makes the world new again. But what that man on the right has done is within his own generation, he has been better than those who do not know God. So in other words, how God judges the world according to sin, how he judges man according to sin, he's not looking at man as sinless. He's looking at man as natural man. And if you're doing all of those things as the man on the left, God already knows who you belong to. If you're doing all the things as the man on the right, but you still stumble and fall, those are things he will cut off as he prunes the plant, and then a new leaf will grow in its place. So though he's not perfect, the Lord continues to prune him and to cut off those things of wickedness till eventually the plant produces a good fruit because it's taken care of by the gardener. So according to this generation and these two men that I've placed in front of you, Paul speaks of the man on the one on the left. He says they will do everything wicked. They will indulge themselves. They will be homosexuals. They will do all sorts of sexual immorality. That's the man on the left. That's this generation. And that is what is normal for this generation. But let's say the man on the right struggles with his sin nature. He fights it. It's a thorn in his side. The flesh is that. But he still stumbles and falls. That man on the right, he then gets concerned that God can't forgive him for these things because he's just gone and done something stupid, or he's in his mind, he's thought about something stupid. God knows this. This is why those who, especially of the church, of the once saved, always saved church, it's why they've never actually been saved. If they were actually saved, they would understand that that man on the right knows he's saved. He doesn't have to think about his sin. He doesn't have to think about where he stumbled. He doesn't have to think about what he has done that is of the world. He knows he's in the world, and he knows it's a constant struggle and battle against it every single day. But he also knows that he's better than the man on the left just because he doesn't indulge in everything that the man on the left is indulging himself in. The man on the left is not saved. The man on the right is saved. The man on the right is not sinless in his generation of flesh, cannot be sinless until the world is created new again. But in the spirit, he is sinless and he is made pure, because who is his intercession? His intercession is Jesus Christ, who is sinless, who is pure, who was here from before the world began. So he is sinless in the spirit, not because he's sinless, but because his Lord is sinless. It makes the same thing. It's like somebody who is a co-signer for a loan. I go to buy a car, they turn my credit down. Then I have to go and I say I grab my dad and I come and I go, and my dad's the co-signer for the car. And then they give the car to me. Well, even if I can't pay that payment, they're still going to come after him because he pledged for that loan. He said that in the event that the primary cannot pay it, I will pay it as the co-signer. That's what a co-signer is, and that's the same thing that Jesus Christ is. And the church has a very hard time understanding that no matter how great the debt, the co-signer is the Lord. There is no debt too great for him. So if you are stumbling and if you are sinning and you know this and you are concerned, am I really saved or not? Am I still going after all of these things that Paul said I would go after? But how much am I going after it? Am I doing all these terrible things? That's a good indication that you're not saved if you think like that. Because once you are saved and once that heart does fill up with righteousness, you will see and understand the flesh exactly for what it is. It's imperfect. But there is the intercessor, which takes that imperfect flesh and makes it into a holy vessel because he dwells in it. The struggle with sin, every human being will go through. Those who are aware of sin, those are ones who will fight to not sin. Awareness is the big key to sin. If you know you're sinning and it weighs on your heart for the things you're doing, those will be things that the gardener will prune from you if you accept Jesus Christ, if you believe he is your Lord, if you walk with him, you trust him and you let him guide you. He will continue to prune you until the day you go to him in the heavens. But the one on the left does not have any of that pruning. All he is doing is filling himself up with the things of hell. The one on the right has the pruning, even though he's not perfect. The fruit that is produced is still a good fruit because the one who dwells in that tree is Jesus Christ, because that is his Lord and he has co-signed. He has written his name in the book of life for that man on the right. Whenever we think of sin and the struggle with sin, especially from the once saved, always saved church, they continue to sin and cannot help themselves from sinning. That is why they say, well, since I'm saved, I'm good. I'm going to keep sinning. I'm going to keep doing the same things as the man on the left is. Their logical reason that they truly think, because they do not want to remove sin from themselves, they do not want the Lord to purify them. So therefore they've come up with a whole doctrine saying that, well, I'm saved, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if I fall because I'm already saved. Once saved, always saved. It means they've never been saved. If that is what you truly follow in your heart, you are not saved. Anybody who would ever follow that doctrine is somebody who wants to indulge themselves in sin, but they're aware of the sin, but they just don't care anyway. That is what they've come up with to fulfill the wickedness of the human heart that produced that. It's because they don't want to stop sinning. They truly don't fight against the flesh. The struggle is not really there. They're aware of it, but they don't care, so they came up with a doctrine which allows that to happen. That was pure evil in the hearts of man that came up with that because they don't want the gardener to trim them. You're judged according to the standards of your generation. If you even do any better than that man on the left, if you even think about doing better than that man on the left, you've still done better than the world. And this is not a lecture on sin. This is the truth. This is the truth about what the actual doctrine is. If I add a third man into the equation, and he belongs to the church and he belongs to the once saved, always saved church, is the third man better than the man on the left? We'll call this third man, we'll call him the man up top. Is that man up top better than the man on the left according to the standards of the generation? Yes, because that man will not do all of the things that that man on the left will do. He will hold himself back simply because of the fear of God is in him and he is scared, which this is what the world does. This is why the fear of God is necessary for the world, because it makes the third man of this equation better than the man on the left judged by the standards of the world. So that third man is better than the man on the left, according to the world, but he is not better than the man on the right, according to the world. So you get the different workers in the field who earn the same wages whenever the Lord removes that wickedness from inside their heart, but they get there differently. And some of them won't get there at all. They'll fall completely off of it. But God sticks with those who fear him. So if you are someone who believes in this kind of doctrine, understand that you are doing better than the world just because you know of it and you fear it. But you're still not doing what God has asked you to do. God has asked you to believe in him, to allow him to cut off those things that cause you to do those sins, the very same sins that the third man in the picture does. But that third man in the picture who believes in this doctrine, he will not let the Lord cleanse him of those sins because he just believes that he's good no matter what. So therefore he doesn't go through purification that the man on the right does. The man on the right, whenever he sins, whenever he knows he sins, whenever he knows he's saved, whenever he fights against that flesh, the Lord will then cut it off and his perspective completely changes. This is how you get over sin. You become aware of what you're actually doing. That's how you get away from sin. And then the Lord gives you the strength of your mind so that you stay away from those things. He cuts it off, just waters and prunes your heart. But the man on the top, who is the once saved, always saved kind of doctrine, his standards are better than the man on the left, but he never is able to get rid of those things that he thinks he's fighting against because he has believed in a lie. And God then gives him over to another lie, and another lie, and another lie. And suddenly that third man is just like the man on the left. Because once you keep believing in lies, you'll believe in another one. My friends, if you struggle at all with trying to think whether you're saved or not, and you follow all of these churches which are teaching this lie, you are not saved. And you're not saved because you haven't trusted the Lord to actually purify you. The man on the right, he has done nothing except examine, ponder, listen, walk with the Lord. And that's good enough. Even though he still has the things of vanity, the Lord says that is good enough. That's all I care about. I'll take you with me. You're willing to follow me? I'll take you with me. All of your sin, I'll remember no more, because I know that you love me, and I know in your heart you desire to do better. Follow me. I forgive your sin. I will remember it no more. That's the man on the right. The man on the left doesn't have that. So he continues to sin himself right into hell, never even aware of it. But that third man who believes in a lie, he will not do all the sins that that man on the left will do, that makes him then better than those of the natural world. He's better. But he will never get to be that man on the right because he refuses to allow God to fix his sin because he refuses to look into the mirror and see himself for what he actually is doing. They've come up with this once saved, always saved lie because they cannot look into the mirror. They will not, for fear that their sin will be revealed, exactly as God said. That third man is going on the same path as the man on the left, but the whole time is unaware of it, which is why they're caught like a snare and a trap. That's what the church does in the generation of the end. It's caught and snared, and there's no getting out of the snare. You go into the great tribulations. But there is a way better than this. It's the reward of the man on the right, who is just like the man on the left, who is just like the third man. But he has a co-signer in Jesus Christ. That's the way out of that snare. As you walk in life and you deal with sin and you become aware of sin and you know what you're doing, you know what other people are doing, remember that God judges you by the standards of the world. And he will take you as the third man in the equation and either take you to the right or push you to the left. He will either take you with him or cut you off. Which one do you want? Which one do you desire? There's two different ways to get there. Which one's better? The man on the right is better. Not because he's better than the third man or the man on the left, but because his co-signer is better than the world. Think about these things and ponder them in your heart. The reason man makes up lies is so he doesn't have to deal with the truth. Be the man on the right. Be the one who allows the gardener to cast things off from you. Do not be the man that looks in the mirror, says, well, I'm good, I'm saved, I'm always saved, but then continues to keep on going out and lusting after the same exact things day after day without having any spiritual solution to it. It means that God is not the one filling his heart. It means the devil is the one that's filling his heart. If you do not get better with sin over time, I'm not saying perfect, but if you do not get better with sin over time, you're just like the man on the left and you're just like the third man. Whoever follows the Lord will be better than the world when it comes to sin. God bless.